Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to sit down and try a bunch of new products. So I have a lot to get through. I will link everything down below. I will also link everything on the YouTube shopping on the screen. If you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe. And if you're excited about trying new makeup videos, give this video a thumbs up. And let's go ahead and begin. I have a lot of things that I want to get on my face. All right, so I went ahead and zoomed you in, and I want to apply more of this new Summer Fridays Lip Butter Balm in Birthday Cake. So this isn't new, but it was brought back, and this is my favorite. We're starting out strong. Excuse me. This is my favorite butter balm from Summer Fridays. It has like a really light sort of sparkle to it. I just think it's really beautiful and it smells delicious. So I don't know if they're keeping this permanent or they're just kind of like bringing it back, but I love it so much that I went ahead and bought two because I didn't know how long this would be back for. So if you missed it, I will link it down below, but I want to go in and start on an eye look. So I did end up picking up one of the new Charlotte Tilbury Beautifying Eyes Trends palettes. So this is the most neutral one. And I know that people were saying that the packaging just felt a little bit cheap. I definitely agree. For a luxury brand, there's just something about this plastic piece. And I know I'd seen some people say that the Dior Backstage line had a similar packaging, but I can confirm that this feels like really cheap. So there is a difference. I think it just may be that this looks like a standard like Makeup Revolution type of packaging. I have to make the disclaimer that my skin has never been drier than it is right now. Nothing I'm doing is working. I have dry eyelids, dry under eyelids, patching that I've never had before. It's unbelievable. It is also like 10 degrees here, so that could be part of it, but I am going through it. I'm slathering like Aquaphor, Vaseline. So I just want to say that I also have been trying this. This is the Aveeno Eczema Therapy. I'm trying everything. And then I finally broke down and repurchased my favorite eye cream ever. This is the Vitamin Enriched Eye Base from Bobbi Brown. Now I went through an entire jar of this, and this is what I would use under my eyeshadow primer and then also under my eyes, and I love it, but it's really expensive. And then I ended up purchasing the Ole Henriksen Banana Bright, and my eyelids are just drier than ever. So I broke down, I repurchased this. This is so worth the money, but I just got it in yesterday. So my first time using it today. So all of that to say, if these do end up being patchy on me, honestly, it's probably partly the formula and partly my eyes. That's what we're dealing with. Like I can already see I have like dry flakes. Nothing I'm doing is working. So leave your remedies down below, but I want to go ahead and swatch couple of these shades. So it looks like it is a matte heavy palette, and then you do have 3 shimmery shades. I have never been a huge like Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow formula lover. I didn't think there was anything wrong with them, but they just didn't stand out to me. So feeling these matte shades, they feel really soft. They feel nice just upon touching them. Nice and pigmented. There's not kick up in the pan. So I am intrigued to try this out. So I think I'm going to start out with the lightest sort of like smoky shade here. And I went ahead and zoomed you in even more. And I want to start to apply this on the outer edge of my eye. I'm already getting nervous, you guys, because I cannot tell you how dry my lids are. I'm gonna try to do kind of like a sweeping motion like this and then into the crease. So I'm just going to do the best I can here and hopefully give you my thoughts regardless. So I'm actually gonna take a little bit more of that shade and just lightly buff in the inner corner, but kind of like going up towards the brow bone. So while I blend this out, I know in my last video, I posted a really long video and I was sort of just like talking about updates and my neck. I did end up going to my doctor and he did order PT. I went to PT and the guy was like, I think you need dry needling, which I know some of you had commented. And because it is in the neck and trap area, I have to wait to get in with somebody that can actually do it, because I guess you have to have like more training. I am waiting to get in for that, but he gave me some exercises I've been doing. I really just feel like I'm not getting relief at this point, so it's definitely frustrating. I also ended up getting a referral to a specialist, but I can't get in until April, so it's just been fun times over here. Next, I'm gonna go into this deep shade, and I'm gonna use a smaller brush, and I wanna try to intensify right at the lash line. Is anyone else's nose just like constantly running? It is unbelievable. Every time I go outside or even just like let the dogs out, my nose is just like a faucet. So far in terms of this formula, I don't really know how to describe it. I wouldn't say that it's like the hardest formula to work with. I just have such dry eyelids right now. Honestly, like no eyeshadow is looking good on me, so it's kind of hard to say. This formula is not very powdery, and it also doesn't appear to be overly pigmented. I kind of feel like there's a translucency with some of these shades, which could end up appearing patchy. I'm not sure I like how far up I went with that inner shade. So I'm gonna take the light cream shade and just kind of soften around the brow area. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of that first shade and kind of just like soften and blur this out. Next, I'm gonna go into this really bright shade that's very, very, very metallic. And I wanna apply this kind of lightly, like scattered. Definitely has more of like a kind of like glittery texture. There's not like a ton of pigment, but I wanna go in maybe with this middle shade. I just wanna try. This one feels like it kind of has more pigment behind it. Kind of fusing the two and then going back in with that deep shade and smaller brush. All right, so I went ahead and finished the other eye off camera. I can't say that it's my best look, but I did want to just kind of play around, use the deep shades, and see what I think of the formula. So far, I feel like it is a little bit finicky. I think these shades in general just are harder to blend, like particularly this one, and then I didn't even dive into that one. These shimmers are really glittery. They're almost like the Makeup by Mario glittery toppers. This center shade has more of a base to it, so I would say more of like a standard metallic, but the feel on these is very lightweight. They don't have a creaminess, they're just very thin. And I will say that there's not a ton of fallout. They do tend to adhere without like any sticky base. So I don't know how to feel about this yet. We'll kind of see how the makeup comes together, but I did want to go into mascara. So I did curl my lashes, and I want to try out the new Benefit Bad Gal Bounce. And this has a kind of like standard brush tip on one side, and then the other side has like that plastic sort of comb. So I feel like you are meant to use one for length and then maybe use the brush to really volumize. So I'm gonna start out with the plastic side, which typically I don't love. I am immediately getting length and like it's coating my lashes, but I want to flip it over and use the bristle side to see if that really kind of like beefs up the lashes. This formula is not wet, which I actually like because it's not messy. So this is what one coat looks like. I'm gonna dip back in. I'm getting like a good volume at the base of my lash, which can be helpful for, you know, blondes, because I feel like my base just looks so light. A lot of the times I feel like I have to use eyeliner. I want to use eyeliner now, let's be real, but I'm trying not to. So this definitely gives me like volume at the base, but I don't feel like it's really holding my lashes up. Like I'm not really getting a curl. So I'm not expecting my lashes to hold up. I'm probably gonna have to curl them again. I feel like I'm getting a little more length on this eye, but Who knows? You know what? Who knows? I could just have better lashes on this side. Okay, so this is what the Benefit mascara looks like. Again, I feel like it's nice for adding volume at the root if you have like blonde lashes like I do, but I'm not really getting much length. So I'm actually going to apply some of these Ardell press-on pre-glued lash extensions, but I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit. I'm gonna clean up the fallout. So I'm just gonna use my Freck moisturizer. I added a little bit earlier, but I just wanna make sure that I'm nice and hydrated. I also lost my nose ring the other day, and it was one of those things that I've had that nose ring in for literally years. I don't even know like when I lost it. I just noticed that it was gone, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've looked all over, can't find it. So I had to like order this cheapy one just to get something in my nose. I think it went down the shower when I was washing my face. That's like the only thing I could think. But I'm also going to apply some more of my Bobbi Brown eye cream just right under my eyes. I put on concealer the other day and it looked so bad. I was appalled. So I'm really hoping that having this back and using it daily is really going to change my skin back, because it really has been rough out here. So I'm also going to try out a new primer. This is the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Glow Serum. So this is a new shade in Fresh Pressed, and this has a pink tint to it, but really these are pretty sheer. It just has like a glow that shifts a little tiny bit. So I'm just gonna use this on the high points of my face. Smells like watermelon. So it's more of like a hydrating sort of base rather than like actually having pigment. Has like a gel texture to it, and it is like pretty thin. So you can see it gives me a little bit of a glow, but it's just a shade expansion. I think there's now maybe 3 shades. So I wanna try next a new foundation. And I think this shade is going to be way too dark, but I do want to try it out. This was sent to me in PR. I just got it. Oh my gosh, you guys, look how dark this is. This is the shade 8L from Lawless, and this is the Forget the Filler Skin Plumping Line Smoothing Foundation. This is supposed to be, I think, like a light shade. I'm going to look this up on Sephora because this looks so deep to me. Okay, so Sephora says that this is a light medium with neutral undertones. It's supposed to be full coverage, natural finish, long wearing. So I am intrigued, but also I really think this is gonna be too deep. So interestingly, oh my gosh, it's so, I don't know if I can even use this shade, you guys. Okay, so I am going to try this. I'm gonna try to just kind of keep it light. It's full coverage, so I don't know how this is gonna go. It's a very thin texture. I think I'm just gonna have to really be strategic with like my concealer. Okay, very, very thin texture, like liquidy. I really don't know if I can do this, you guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, unfortunately, I really don't think that I can make that work. It's just like way too deep for me. So we're going to switch gears and try out a different foundation. I'll have to pick up a different shade or get a sample or something. I have also the Givenchy Prisme Libre Glow Serum Foundation. So this is interesting because I feel like I've seen this before and they just kind of like keep releasing different versions and it really confuses me. All right, so I've got it pulled up on Sephora. It says a lightweight, hydrating, non-comedogenic skincare infused foundation with a natural finish and medium buildable coverage. They sent me 2 shades, but I pulled out the shade 3W. It's definitely, you know, a little bit dark, but I think this is doable. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start applying. Okay, immediately it has a scent. Ooh, yeah, I don't really love that. It has like that flowery smell to it, which is definitely not something I prefer. Very thin, which is kind of interesting because I feel like typically skincare infused foundations are quite thick. Coverage, I would say it's looking like a medium. All All right, so this is what the Givenchy foundation looks like freshly applied. This shade is definitely a little bit too warm and deep for me. Even with the self tan, I definitely need to go down a shade or two. I do feel like it feels hydrating, but it's very thin, which I like. I don't love the fragrance. I do think that it does have a glow, like very, very glowy. So I am intrigued to see how this does with the products that I put on top. I would say the coverage is definitely medium. You can build it, but I don't know if it would go full without being too much. So I want to try out next a cream bronzer that I purchased a while ago. This is from a brand called Tennille J. She is a makeup artist, and this is the Bronzor Sculpt Cream in Caramel Latte, which is a medium warm. This is massive. Like, I don't know who is going to use this much cream bronzer in their lifetime, but I want to swatch this. I also bought some brushes. This is very, very, very thin and appears to be very, very, very pigmented. So I'm going to go ahead and dip in and grab some product. This is definitely a warm shade. It feels not super like dewy, which I would prefer. The only problem is that this foundation is extremely dewy. So I feel like this formula is really easy to work with. It is hard for me to see what is bronzer and what is the foundation because these foundation shades are just really dark. I feel like I'm not having any issues blending, and it's not like a tacky formula, so I think I'm going to like this. I think I just really need to get some concealer on like immediately. Okay, before we can go into concealer, I do want to try out one of these new shades of the Huda Beauty liquid blushes. So these were sent to me in PR, and these look so beautiful. I love this formula. It is so easy to work with. So this first shade is called Sunset Lychee. And then we have this really pretty pink, and this is called Bubblegum. Ooh, that's really pretty. This formula is just honestly so easy to work with. You can use it with pretty much any product and it doesn't get patchy. It's very lightweight. It's not sticky. It's buildable, but it's not too sheer or too pigmented. So this one is Intense Guava. I don't think that that would go with my look. So I am going to maybe start out with the Bubblegum shade. Start applying. So this shade is definitely a lighter shade. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna need more to have it really show up. That's a really pretty, kind of like baby doll shade, but it's not too baby doll. Kind of feels like a neutral bubblegum pink. It's not leaning like lilac or anything like that, which is, you know, super popular. I really want to try this one, but with this eye look, it's just too much. And I am over applying it just so you guys can see, but also once we go in with powder, it'll settle down. So I love this formula. These look so pretty, and I'm really glad she came out with more shades. So I want to go in next with concealer to kind of tie everything together. So this is a new brand at Sephora. It's Isabella Beauty. So she came out with her line a while ago, and then she revamped it, and it's now available at Sephora. So I bought some products. I'm going to use a couple of them today. So the packaging sort of has like that injector type of feel. I will say that the packaging feels very, very light and just not super luxe. So that's a little bit disappointing. So the way you use this is you pump. I don't even want to get it like all over. You pump and the concealer comes out. So I got this concealer in 5 Fair is the shade that I got. Now what's interesting about this is supposed to be a full coverage radiant finish. I tried this once and it was not full coverage in my opinion. I do think that the packaging is a little bit just kind of gimmicky. It just kind of like doesn't have the luxe feel. I will say that it does feel really cooling on your eye, like when you use this, but I just don't want this to get super gunky. So for me personally, I feel like you have to wipe it off after each use. It's just a little bit finicky and not really user friendly. It's bulky. I don't know. It's just not my favorite, but I'm just going to let this sit for a second, and then I want to blend out. I just did not feel like this was a full coverage. It definitely is thin and hydrating. I would say it kind of reminds me of like a thinner version of the LYS concealer. It has a radiance to it, kind of like the Becca under eye corrector. So again, I don't dislike it, but I just don't think it's full coverage, and I think it's kind of misleading to say that it is. I would say it's more of like, I don't even know, maybe like a low medium coverage. I do like that it's hydrating, and I think it's one of those that I would reach for like more every day when I'm not doing like full glam, because it has more of like that natural feel. All right, so this is what the Isamaya concealer looks like. I mean, it definitely has a radiance. Like, it's very glowy, very thin, hydrating. I want to see how it plays with powder, and I have the new Kosas Cloud Set translucent powders. So we have the yellow tone, and then we also have the pink. So I'm interested. These are huge. Like, these are like hockey pucks, you know? I like to say they're like a weapon. I really like the packaging on this because it is like large and in charge. It reminds me kind of like Kimchi Chic. So I want to try out the pink shade in particular, and I'm wondering how this is going to work on my skin tone. Like, is it going to be brightening, or is it going to be too intense? Make sure that I pat out any creasing. Kosas also did send over this little puff, so I'm going to use that, and I'm going to just press this in. Holy moly, that looks really pink. Oh, that looks really pink, you guys. Like Huda Beauty lilac pink. I'm gonna take, ooh, I do not like what's happening right now. It's definitely leaving a pink cast. It's not smoothing at all on the pores. I feel like this actually made my texture look pretty bad for a powder. Okay, so just because I want to see if it's like the product underneath, like the foundation and the concealer, I'm gonna go in with the powder that I know and love. This works beautifully with creams. It's the Melt She's Alive powder, and I'm going to make sure that I don't have any creasing, and I'm gonna go in and set this side. I want to see if it's the base underneath. That Kosas powder is like pigmented. I wasn't expecting that, because a lot of times like these pink powders don't really have much pigment other than like the Huda Beauty. Okay, so just looking at the difference, obviously I set only the top area. You know what? Let's just go for it to make it fair. I'm gonna go in with that Kosas powder and really make sure I'm setting over the blush. What is going on? This is the Kosas side. I have like lifting, patching. My pores look enhanced. This is the Melt side. I feel like everything's set perfectly on this side. Does this Kosas powder have like glow, like illuminating properties to it? I think it does, which in my opinion would make it like a finishing powder. I just cannot believe how bad that looks under, like in your T-zone. Okay, so this was the best that I could do. I'm actually gonna take more of my Melt powder, just let this sort of bake while I finish my brows, and hope that that will help out that situation. I also want to apply some of these lashes. So these are the Ardell Press-On Pre-Glued Under Lash Extensions. I love these. So I'm trying to figure out which ones I want to go in with. I kind of think I want to use maybe the Wispies. So I'm going to go ahead and take a 12 millimeter and put that on both sides. So I just kind of press them down. I can't find my applicator, my lash applicator tool. So I'm using tweezers. And then I'm just going to take a 10 millimeter. I find that these Ardell press-ons are thicker, so they help with like giving you a lash line if, again, you're like blonde, and they're just easier to pull out of the package than the Kiss. I'm just gonna go back into the Charlotte Tilbury palette, and I think I'm just gonna use that deep shade very, very lightly, just like on this little outer edge. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave the eyes there, but I wanted to show you some new lip liners I got. So these are from BabsBeauty. I had to get this Liberica, which looked like a beautiful, like cool toned, really grungy color. Now in terms of formula, these are kind of like a drier pencil. I would say maybe similar to Anastasia Beverly Hills, but a little bit more dry. Now in terms of like the actual wear, I'm gonna let this sit while I apply this and then we'll kind of swipe. I don't feel like they're the longest lasting, but the shades are really beautiful and like grungy. So I'm just going to line my lips with Liberica and then we'll kind of figure out what we want to put on for lipstick. All right, so this is what this lip liner looks like. When I was using it more, it kind of has like a kind of silicone slip to it. So it's gliding really easily, but I feel like it's also a buildable formula. It's not crazy pigmented, very thin. Like it doesn't feel like I have anything on, very weightless, but I feel like you could really blur it and kind of make it more sheer or more pigmented. So I wanna just kind of go over these. Yeah, I feel like there is some staying power, but definitely some smudging as well. I wouldn't say that these are the longest lasting, but they're not like wearing off immediately. So this shade is really unique to my collection. It has like a purpley gray undertone to it. So I also ended up picking up one of the Isamaya lip balms. Now I don't know, okay, it says it's flamingo lip balm. I don't like how the sticker is like on the inside. It just kind of feels cheap to me, but I want to swatch this. I don't know if this is going to work with what I'm wearing, probably not. It has a decent amount of pigment. There's no scent that I can detect. It's like a really pretty pink balm. I'm just going to go for it and see what it looks like. It has like shimmer in it and you can definitely kind of feel the shimmer. It's very like fine. That's definitely not gonna go with this makeup. I thought I would just try it on for you, but I'm gonna have to switch gears. I think I wanna pull into like one of my MAC lipsticks that I love. All right, so I went ahead and pulled out this Powder Kiss liquid lip color. This is the It's Personal shade. I was hoping that this might work because it has like that gray undertone. I don't want this to be like too gray. So I'm just gonna apply it and then kind of use my finger to kind of sheer it out. I almost forgot I have one more product to test out. So I did pick up the Fenty Beauty You Mist Makeup Extending Spray. So this is supposed to be a setting spray that extends your makeup up to 12 hours, but also gives you hydration. It says that it is long-wearing, fragrance-free, alcohol-free, and oil-free. So I want to shake it up and then let's see. I have used this like once before, but I really couldn't make my mind up. So I'm just going to really apply a good amount. It's interesting when you are applying it, I will say that it kind of is like the sprayer doesn't spray out, like disperse out wide. So it has like a nozzle that kind of comes at you fast, but the actual spray is really fine. Then I'm just going to press into the skin. It also feels sort of like how the Patrick Ta One Size feels. Not the Patrick Ta, the Patrick Star, the One Size feels, in the sense that it doesn't feel super wet. When I was spraying it, it almost felt like my face wasn't even wet. Kind of has like a soft, powdery type of feel. I don't know if my skin looks really any different. It did kind of help those powders set down a little bit. So I am curious how this will wear. It's kind of a lot because I'm trying a bunch of new products, but I will kind of see how this wears throughout the day. Try to update you in the comments, but let me get myself together and then I will go over my initial first impressions on all the products. All right, guys, so here's my finished makeup look using a bunch of new products. Definitely not my favorite, but I want to give you my first impressions. So in terms of the Charlotte Tilbury palette, I do think it's overpriced for the packaging. I just don't like the plastic cover. It just cheapens it. It feels cheap, and I just feel like for the price tag, it should have been something more substantial. The mattes in here are not the easiest to work with. I don't think they're the worst ever, but if you're a beginner or you struggle, I just don't know if I would recommend this to you. I think that if you like really glittery, like topper-like shades and you like a small like 9-pan palette, you may get on with this. This kind of reminds me of a little bit of a lighter version of the Makeup by Mario, the most recent ethereal palette, just kind of that really glittery topper like formula. But I just feel like for the price tag, the formula should be easier to work with, more variety, and the packaging really should be more luxe. So I don't dislike it, but I'm not like wowed. And then in terms of the Benefit mascara, I just feel like it is heavy. Like my lashes are just kind of weighed down. It does give a nice root volume for me being a blonde. I just feel like my lash line looks really washed out a lot of the times. So it does give me that, but even after curling again, my lashes are just drooping. It almost feels like it has that like silicone type formula, I guess, that really just weighs your lashes down. So definitely not a favorite for me personally. The Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Serum, again, I don't think you need to run out and get this if you have the other shades. It has a gel-like texture, but it's quite emollient, kind of like syrupy sticky, so it gives you some real hydration under your makeup. So I like it, but again, it's not my favorite. I prefer the Glow Recipe Dewdrops, like in the pink or the bronze. This is just definitely more sheer overall. Moving on to the Givenchy foundation. I feel like this is interesting because it is very glowy, but it's very, very thin. I like that it feels lightweight. It's very thin. It's not a heavy, sticky feel, but it is insanely dewy and glowy. Now, looking at my skin, I do feel like it worked fine with powders, except for the Kosas powder, which we'll get to. I like that it has a good medium coverage. I just don't like the fragrance in here. My skin doesn't feel irritated at all, but if you're sensitive, that's something to look out for. And I wish this shade was just lighter, so I'm gonna have to try a different shade, but I am happy that it does play well with powder because that's really important to me personally. Now, in terms of this cream bronzer, this I feel like is hard to tell what I think about it because the foundation was just too warm and deep. I felt like it was almost similar to this shade, but from what I can tell, very thin, very pigmented. The packaging is nothing, you know, luxe, but I think she is a makeup artist, the owner of this brand, so it makes sense because you get a ton of product, really easy to travel with. So I'm gonna have to keep playing around with this, but I had no issues with it. I just really feel like I couldn't see it because this foundation was like kind of the same shade. Of course, I love the Huda Beauty blushes. I think they're stunning. I'm so glad that she's coming out with more shades. Excited to try them and try out the really bright shades, but this is just such an easy formula. It's buildable, it's not sticky, it's not overly dewy, it's not dry. It truly is just a no fuss formula, and they smell incredible. Now, I am feeling a little bit confused about this Isamaya concealer. So I think the packaging is a little cheap. It feels a little gimmicky, but it has a really nice hydration. I just wish it had a little bit more coverage. I do feel like it looks nice on my under eye, but I can still see just like my darkness coming through. It's just very thin, very dewy. It has like a glow to it. So very similar to the look of, let's say, like the Say concealer, but I would say just thinner overall, not sticky. So I like that it's hydrating, and I like that it just feels really lightweight on the under eye, but I just wish it had a little bit more coverage, and I don't think they should be claiming that it's full coverage. Now, the Kosas powder truly threw me for a loop. I think this has a shimmer in it, number one, which is kind of interesting. Anytime you set your T-zone, like I don't want any glow in that. So I would have to try this again, maybe as like a finishing powder. This actually like lifted and then added like a highlight. It patched off my makeup. Like it did not play well with the products underneath. And the fact that my melt did, I just don't feel like this is going to be a formula that I love. I also feel like it's pretty pigmented. So it kind of reminds me of like a step down from the Huda Beauty Electric Lilac. So it's not one that I feel like you could put all all over your face unless you want like pink. So this was disappointing to me. I'm kind of surprised by it, but just not a favorite. And then in terms of the lip liners, I feel like these are really a standout product from Isamaya. And I think the formula is good. It's nothing like crazy, like the best I've ever tried, but it's a solid formula. But I think what really makes these stand out is the colors. So I really think if you like gray, grungy tones, you're gonna find some fun colors. And I do wanna try more just because I feel like they're not crazy thick and pigmented. So you can kind of build them up, sheer them out. And I feel like they're gonna be fun to play around with. And then I still have to try out this from Isamaya, the balm. It felt nice. It had a little bit of grit to it, but very thin. I don't know how I feel about it because it just doesn't go with the colors we have on right now. So I'll have to update on that. And then the Fenty Beauty, I really don't know what to say as of right now. I do feel like it didn't feel wet on the skin. It almost felt like a powdery sort of veil. The mister is really fine, but kind of like narrow, so it gets, you know, right where you're spraying it. And I think the packaging is nice, but again, I'm kind of just let down recently a lot by like setting sprays that claim to do like all this 12-hour wear, and nothing is beating like my Kelly Ray or even just like Urban Decay All Nighter or the Charlotte Tilbury. So I'll have to keep trying that and see what I think. But overall, I think I look like a mess. But you know what? It is what it is. I hope that you got to see some products that you were interested in. So of course, I will link everything that I used today down below. I hope you guys got some value out of this video nonetheless. And let me know if you've tried any of these products, what your experience was, and what you think about the products that I tried in general. Also, let me know what products you want me to use next. I have a bunch, so videos should be coming. If you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.